Divine greetings, ones and zeros, zeros and ones, boys and girls that are now men and women, kings and queens, gods and goddesses, spiritual beings of this divine matrix. Welcome. My name is Clay, and today I want to expound on a story that I had done before, or a video that I had done before, regarding the schizophrenic process, or how I came to the schizophrenic process, and particularly how we can, as a society, as a collective, help those of us who suffer schizophrenia. As schizophrenia really is a spectrum, it's on a spectrum, because there are some of us who hear voices and or see things or feel things, sense things that are not so adept in the collective consciousness community, as it relates to relaying those sensations with one another. We're not always so welcoming to each other when we sense certain things. And schizophrenia really is a degree of those sensations, and how it is that those sensations are relaying from one person to the other. In schizophrenia, in my diagnosed schizophrenia, the difference is when it becomes chronic, when it gets to the point where you can't tell if you're sensing something from within or you're sensing something from without. And in my case, the dominant sensation was the auditory voice. So I couldn't tell if the voice that I was hearing was from within or the voice that I was hearing was without. Now, one of the main things that I see that we can do as a society, as a collective, to help ourselves, to help people who suffer from these mental diseases, such as schizophrenia, such as bipolar, such as even anxiety and depression and PTSD, multiple personality disorders. They're kind of the same or similar things. And one of the main things, or three of the main things that I see that would help in fixing or clarifying what these mental diseases are. The three things that I see is, one is the a creation story, that helps the individual to gain accountability. Two is the definition of masculine and feminine, and how each person, each gender has within them masculine and feminine energies, and those masculine and feminine energies has their role to play. And when you don't attribute the correct role to the masculine and feminine, then there is disorder, and that disorder leads to mental disorder. The other thing is the inner child. As we get older, we tend to forget that we don't leave our inner child, we don't leave our 1 year old in the past. I'm 44 years old now, so my 1 year old is here with my 44-year-old, and that 1 year old, everything that I did as a 1 year old, everything that I did from I was in the womb is recorded, and everything that was done to me in the womb is recorded. So when you get to a certain stage, if those traumas that you incurred are not dealt with, then those traumas will become chronic. Now, the main thing that society does is to help with medication. That is the biggest doing that society does. Society tends to put medication on people. And medication is good because when it is done the right way, medication helps. Because in my case, I'll give the example, in my case, it helped to silence the voices. However, it is to be understood that in silencing the voices, it doesn't do anything for the feeling, the sensation. It doesn't do anything for the trauma. All it does, it continues to repress the trauma. If there is not therapy that is done with the medication, then that repression is going to become chronic at some point. It's going to break out just like a volcano or an earthquake in the earth when there's a certain buildup of energy, as energy is neither created nor destroyed. That energy is going to come out in some way, shape, or form, right? So medication is good. However, medication is not the end it be all for the help that we can do for people who suffer these disorders. Also, the type of medication, because in me going through schizophrenia, the first medication that I took was called Haldol or haloperidol, and in taking that medication, that one really helped in the denser part of my psychosis, and the dosages and all these things matter, and the psychiatrist can help with that, or the institution is geared towards helping with things like those. However, the institution tends to focus heavily on medication, and medication, as I said before, is simply repressing the problem. Now, when I was taking the Haldol, I'm going to call it Haldol, I found also that after a while, I had to lower the dosage because it's one of the older drugs, which I tend to find that it's one of the better drugs in certain sense. And these are things that you have to speak on with your psychiatrist and how it is that it's making you feel. So Haldol is one of those older drugs or medication, and what it does is it really helps to quiet the voice, but at the same time it makes you sleep a lot, or it can make you sleep a lot depending on the dosage. And there are side effects. A lot of people have side effects. Fortunately for me, I didn't have that much side effects, or the side effects that I had, I could handle it without taking other medication, because that's the other problem. You take one medication and then there's a side effect, and then you have to take another medication, and all those things deteriorate the body. Furthermore, when you have to take another thing for a side effect, what it's saying is that your trauma is also existing in another realm that you're further repressing. So a side effect is another type of trauma. So these are little things that the medical institution is not so keen on addressing. So I went off of Haldol, and then I started taking, I believe, Seroquel, and then I started taking risperidone, and these are gentler type of medication, type of drugs that helps with the voices and helps with in my case, the transition, the rewiring of the mind. Because what happened when I had the mental break is that I became fragmented. That's the best way I see to put it. I became fragmented. So in becoming fragmented, because the mask that I had was shattered. That mask shattered. It's like this. It's like I have a mask and the mask shattered, because I was also a narcissist. So that mask shattered. So once that mask shattered, I no longer had the ego, or one dominant ego, to protect me or to present to the public an idea or a persona of me. So once that mask shattered, I had to put back the pieces together, and or that's one option, putting back the pieces together to the mask, which I did not want to do, or to allow my true self to come forward. And in allowing your true self to come forward, it's going to be difficult, because you have to put back that mask together, right? And then put away that mask. Or you have to put the mask together as you're putting it away. Now, as I'm doing that, one of the most important things is the creation story. How did I get here? How is it that I am having this experience as a human being? And I'll give you one of the creation stories. There are many creation stories, because what the creation story is is giving you accountability for your actions, giving me accountability for my actions. And this is why I'm saying that there are many creation stories. And this is coming from the truth, as science knows that there is energy is neither created nor destroyed. This is one of the most important points that I learned that allows me to continuously maintain my sovereignty, maintain my dignity, maintain my sanity, understand that I am that I am. And that truth is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Now, if energy, or as energy is neither created nor destroyed, what that means is that there was never a beginning and there will never be an end. However, as human beings, as beings that have an ego, we tend to want a beginning. We tend to want to look at a beginning. And there's nothing wrong with looking at a beginning, understanding that that beginning is not the only beginning. There are many beginnings. However, all beginnings stem from truth. All beginnings are within love. So the story that I like, or you know what, a story that a lot of us is familiar with, that I'm going to use, is a story in the Bible when it says, come let us make man in our image. And what that means, how I now interpret that, is that when the Bible says, come let us now make man in our image, who is saying, come let us make man in our image? It is God that is saying, come let us make man in our image. And who is God talking to? God is talking to itself. Or I'm talking to God and God is talking to me, because I'm a co-creator with the creator, right? So that's the dualistic nature of things. And it is very important to understand that we're here to balance the dualistic nature of things. We're here to have an equilibrium in existence. So when the Bible says, come let us make man in our image, this is how I interpret it to keep my sane mind. That I am there with God, as I am God, having the conversation to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do when I go to earth. And this now opens up a lot of dialogue or narrative stating that earth is not the only place where souls go to live, or souls go to have an existence. And as a previously fractured being, I know that earth is not the only place, because I have memories of being in other planets, you could say. I don't even want to call them planets, because calling them planets make it very human. However, I don't know, or I should say I don't know. I don't have other words to describe what they are, more than to say there are other places of existence, and I have memory of those other places of existence. So one of the things you do not want to do when you're helping someone who is suffering a schizophrenic break, or a mental break, or one of these mental diseases, is to deny that what they're experiencing is true. Now, what they're experiencing may be a distortion. Chances are, though, that distortion has a basis in reality. It has a basis in truth. Because, as I said before, energy is neither created nor destroyed. Or in Jamaica, we say, Wafio can't be unfio. Or Ubuntu, which is I am because we are. It's saying the same thing. Animism says the breath of life animates everything that is material. This is the same energy of truth that is saying energy is neither created nor destroyed. Now, as a civilization, we are well aware that this is so. We are well aware that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So then what would help people with these diagnoses, or people even in general understand what life is that this truth permeates every sector of life, every institution. Now, as this truth permeates every sector of life, as love embodies or love allows and accepts every sector of life, it is to be seen that when a person is having these mental breaks, they're now in a state of high sensitivity. So them being in a state of high sensitivity, the one of the things that I see that society or people can do, caregivers or medical professionals can do, is to empathize rather than to sympathize. Because when you sympathize, all you're doing is you're accepting the repression modality. You're accepting and allowing the person who is reflecting in your mirror to repress, because you yourself are not admitting the truth that it is that you know within yourself. So this is another a very important point that I see as people who are helping other people. People who are helping other people, if they don't know themselves, if as a caregiver you don't know yourself, it's quite possible that you can do more harm than good, because you're going to enable the person who is disabled into further disability. Because, for example, one of the traumatizing moments that came with me after having the mental break is meeting with a therapist. And in meeting with that therapist could not empathize. If my partner wasn't there who could empathize, I would have suffered a trigger. I would have suffered a panic attack, because when that therapist was seeking to help me, that therapist was denying my feelings, the feelings that I had, that the therapist was being inconsiderate. The therapist was being immature and was being themselves crazy. You could say they were being dyslexic, as they were suffering from cognitive dissonance. The therapist is supposed to be helping me, yet the therapist could not help me. And in that moment, that therapist triggered me. However, my partner was there to correct the therapist, because my partner knows herself and knows that what I was saying to the therapist was 100% accurate. And having her there made me secure in the feeling that I had, that I was having a sensation about the therapist, that the therapist was hiding something from himself and from me also. So in that case, because that therapist didn't know themselves, that therapist was actually more of a threat than a harm, more of a threat than a help, right? Now, then there is another therapist interaction that I had. And this therapist, though she is not as adept as my partner, this therapist was more able to empathize. And as she could empathize, she couldn't empathize all the way or to the depth of what it is that I was saying. However, I could detect the truth within her, that she was able to resonate truth frequency with me. So that is one of the other most important things, to have a therapist that can empathize rather than sympathize. And what I have found in the medical industry is that a vast, I would say 99% of therapists and psychiatrists cannot empathize. They can sympathize, but they cannot, or they choose not to empathize. Because when you choose to empathize, you see that even the very system that you're working in is narcissistic. And that is one of the things that most therapists and psychiatrists will not admit. They will not admit that the very system that they're working for, because they're protecting themselves, the very system that they're working for is narcissistic. And then this extends to other caregivers, because a lot of people in life is also narcissistic. Now, there's a difference between being a narcissist when it becomes chronic and being narcissistic. Most people in life, I'm going to say most people, particularly males, are narcissistic because it's an ego stance. So most males are going to be narcissistic, and also most females, as they are unhealed, are going to be narcissistic. The degree of narcissism that they exhibit is a whole another thing. However, when you, as a person who is very sensitive in your broken mental, and I'm careful here to say broken mental, because broken mental means that it's a broken physicality, the way in which you interpret the signals coming from your soul to your physical body has been broken. It doesn't mean that your soul is broken. Your soul is not broken. Your soul is working very well. However, transferring the information from within your soul to your mental to express yourself, that is what is broken. Now, that being broken, it doesn't mean, or it means that you have your sensations within you. You know the truth. And we all know the truth. So when a person who is going through something, who is suffering a mental disorder, or when a person who is suffering some diseases is relaying to a caregiver, and that caregiver is denying their sensation, then that caregiver is not being a truthful mirror. And that is very disabling to both. It's just that the caregiver has a more secure mental in expressing themselves, which means that the caregiver is actually being more narcissistic than the person who is currently disabled in their mental. Trustfully, that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, give me a comment, a like, a comment, and also I'm reminded to ask you to subscribe, and let me know which aspect of what it is that I'm saying is not coherent in your eyes, and possibly it's also not coherent in my eyes, and I need your mirror to see it. So that is one of the things. I mentioned the caregiver or the medical profession having the creation story and being truthful in the creation story of how it is that we got here. Another aspect of the creation story is that we all chose to come here to have this earthly experience. When we were with Source, as energy is neither created nor destroyed, when we are with Source, we planned our journey. We planned our divinity. We planned our steps, right? And then once we, quote unquote, leave Source, because we never leave Source. However, in words, this is how I know how to say it. Once we leave Source, we develop choice. Or you can say we unveil choice. The choice to go left or the choice to go right. The choice to do good or the choice to do bad. Because this planet is one where we have the experience of free will. In having the experience of free will, that is what it means. It means that you're going to have the choice to do bad or to do good, to go left or to go right, to go up or to go down, to be male or to be female, right? To be a masculinated embodiment or to be a feminized embodiment. And that takes me now to the understanding of masculine and feminine. And let me go into a little bit more about the creation story. That creation story then tells the individual, unveils the individual, unveils to the individual the memory. They can choose to deny it. That's the beautiful thing about free will. The individual can choose to deny that they planned this journey and everything that is happening to them is on account of their desire, their willpower. They can deny that. However, it is not true. right? And this is why I'm saying, this is where I'm saying, do not sympathize, empathize. Because you know the truth, you know yourself, and you know that God would never give you more than you can bear. You would never give yourself more than you can bear. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. Wafio can be unfear. Ubuntu, I am because we are. Collectively, we give each other no more than we can bear. It is our journey to come here and have this experience. And that is one of the lead things that helps me to keep my sanity, because I hold myself accountable. And I am grateful for the experience of having this, this journey on earth with my fellow soul beings, with my fellow soulmates. With that being said, the idea of masculine and feminine. And the idea of masculine and feminine, I'm looking at the time. The idea of masculine and feminine is one wherein the energy is one energy. So there's love energy. In love energy, there is the capacity, not capacity. In the love energy, there is the modality that there is left and right, up and down, time and space, creative and receptive, instructions and doing. So in this understanding, the masculine is the doer. The feminine is the instructions. The masculine is the receptive. The feminine is the correction. The masculine is the creative. The feminine is the receptive. Okay, now in that understanding, we as humans, as gender, every life form, every type of life form has this masculine and feminine energy with it. It has to have it, because this is how time and space exists. Time is masculine, space is feminine. This is my understanding. Time is masculine, space is feminine. Time is creative, space is instructive. So within this gender of a body, I am a male. As a male, I'm going to be prone to be more creative. I'm going to be prone to be more masculinated, more a protector, more of a provider, right? Because the creative energy is more of a protector energy and more of a provider energy. Now, that is to be understood in light of the feminine vessel, the female vessel, which my partner is the female vessel. And the female vessel is something that we don't like to see, that I know I didn't like to see, and still have issues with sometimes, is the superior vessel, right? Now, that superior vessel can clearly create and can clearly provide and can clearly protect. At the same time, it has a better nurturing base. It is the nurturer. The feminine vessel is the nurturer, because that's where you get the instructions from. That's where you are more receptive. Receptive to what? Receptive to source. The woman is closer to divinity than the man. That is the reality of the situation. And anyone who says otherwise, well, I say God go with you, because I don't know how to tell you otherwise, and I can't tell you otherwise, because the reality of the situation is this. Reality of the situation is this. We have free will, and people will deny the truth in order to have what they say they shall have, right? So masculine and feminine was so important for me to understand. And I remember there was a battle, and I speak about this in another video about angels and demons, so I won't go into it here. However, it was a battle within my soul, and I was witnessing the masculine and the feminine, the angel and the demon battling, and me being the observer to have the angel humble the demon, or to have the demon, right? The demonic aspect, not the demon, the demonic aspect humble itself to allow the angel to sit on the seat of presence. And you can check out that video. However, that is the other thing that was so critical in me having responsibility, taking accountability for my own actions. How is it that I came to have a broken mind? Because the thing is to remember that having a broken mind doesn't mean that you have a broken soul. Having a broken mind doesn't mean that your soul cannot transmute or transmit instructions from the soul to the brain. It takes time. It takes lots of meditation. One of the things that I did when I suffered the schizophrenic break, when I suffered the mental break, is I was meditating for hours in the beginning. Hours upon hours, meditating, sleeping, just being in silence, and listening, being an observer for hours and hours and hours. And the medication helped with this, because instead of being active and being about, the medication made me want to sleep, and also it made me docile, so to speak. So that was the other thing that was so important in guiding me through schizophrenia, or through the denser part of the schizophrenic break. The other thing is inner childhood work. Because one has to realize that, or in my case, it's not always the case. In my case, the moment I got here, I was in a density. From within my mother's womb, I was within a certain density that made me abandon myself, my true self. In my partner's case, this wasn't the situation. My partner kept her sovereignty, kept her true self all the way throughout her life. However, she had her challenges as well. Now, in my case, and in many people's case, they abandoned themselves from early on. I have recollection through inner childhood work, through meditation, through the divine process of remembering myself, that even from in the womb, I had abandoned myself, or I had started to abandon myself. My core memory of actually abandoning myself came at 1 year old, when witnessing an argument between my mother and my father. And in witnessing that argument, I decided I was going to take my mother's side, and I became a mama's boy, so to speak. I decided to pick up my motherhood wound, and I would keep that motherhood wound all the way up until, even now I'm struggling with it. Even now I face challenges with it, with that motherhood wound. And this is the path that I've chosen. So inner childhood work is very important. If you don't do inner childhood work, then you won't be able to unseat the traumas that led to the chronic behavior of having the mental disorder, of having the mental break. And so those three things: the inner childhood trauma, the creation story, and the understanding of masculine and feminine. Those are the three main things that I see that helped me to navigate into having a sane mental, where I can rewire my mind. And every day is a day where I rewire my mind more and rewire my mental more and more to the divinity within my soul, to the divinity that is within my heart. That is why we're heart beings. I'm reminded here to mention one more thing, which is the cosmic trauma. We have cosmic trauma also, because we are not earth beings. We are spiritual beings here to have a human experience. So we all have many different traumas that we must unseat. So these diseases and disorders are a result of trauma that we chose to come here to experience. No matter how bad it may look, no matter how you may want to sympathize with someone, no one here is not to be held accountable for their journey. We all chose in source, in divinity, in oneness to have the experience that we have. No matter how you see slavery, colonization, rapes, murders, you may see people that we say are disabled or handicapped or wickedest of things that you may witness. Each person came here to have that experience. Now, that being said, in the dualistic nature of things, there are those who are more of a sacrifice and those who are here to learn how to be a sacrifice, to mirror the sacrificial role. For example, in the case of me and my partner is the sacrifice, and I'm here to mirror the sacrifice. So how I appreciate in gratitude, this is how I hold it in my mind to keep a sane mind, is that my partner lit my candle. Now, in her lighting my candle, I do my best to keep my candle lit so that I can also reflect to her to help her shine her light. No different than when Christ, the one who they call Yeshua, came here and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." This is the same thing. He was being the sacrifice, right? As they killed him. And through believing in, or trusting, I don't want to say believe, through trusting in his words when he says things like, "I am that I am," or he asks, "Who do you say I am?" Or he say, "Know ye not that ye are gods according to your law," right? He's reminding us that we are no different from him. It is not for us to say that Christ, it is not for us to say that Christ did the work, so as long as you believe in Christ, everything is okay. No, that is rubbish. Christ also said, or they say that Christ said, "Greater is he that is within you. Know ye not that ye are gods? I am that I am. Pick up your bed and walk." Many of the things that Christ said, that they say that Christ said, points to you being accountable for yourself. Greater works than these shall you do. We are all the Christ. Christ is in all of us. Furthermore, we are all here having the option to be enlightened beings. Some people will never choose to be enlightened, and that is their choice. So this is how I see that society, caregivers, mental health workers, the hospital, institutions, all these places, this is how I see that they can help to make it better for people who suffer schizophrenia or who suffer bipolar, who suffer mental disorders, PTSD, anxiety, depression. All these things are stemming from us not knowing ourselves, us not paying accountability for the energy that we are using. And with that, I say, Ashe, Amen, and Namaste. Each one, reach one, teach one.